and found some of the best questions, which we are going to make sure to answer. So if you have a great question, feel free to ask it in the chat. And hello to everyone there. It's good to see Zam. Good to see everybody else in the chat. Thank you for providing the COVID statistics, Zam. Very useful. Looks like...
sorry, I fixed the volume issue.
You know what, Michael? You're the production manager. I'll let you introduce the show.
Hello, and welcome to Hacking with Friends, where we're doing your weekly Q&A session. So if you have any great hacking questions, feel free to ask. And I'm glad we can hear you now. Yeah.
I just did that whole intro.
Yeah, sorry. The computer decided to select a different microphone.
Darn. Well, if you have any computer-related questions, you can feel free to ask me. If you have any cryptozoology-related questions, feel free to ask Michael. And as always, we're going to take some questions from the chat as well. Oh, sorry, from our YouTube videos as well.
Yes.
Yes, good to see Zam. Good to see everybody else in the chat. Yeah, wow. We had to do the whole thing all over again. All right. So let's go ahead and take our first question, Michael.
So this is more of a comment, but so from TJ Green on your last week's Q&A video, I've been doing a bit of IoT security research and testing and found a cool tool called Evil SDP.
Evil what?
Evil SSDP, and find it really useful and helpful. It applies to devices that might take advantage of UPnP, UMAP, and Miranda are two other tools that might be of interest. And this also ties into another question we got, so I kind of bundled these two, which was how to improve IoT security.
Totally different questions. Let's split them apart again. So switch over to my screen really quick, and you'll be able to see the tool in question. This is called Evil SSDP. So what is SSDP? So one of my favorite things about getting into hacking is learning about a protocol or something that is designed for convenience and then immediately imagining all the bad stuff you can do with it. So SSDP is a simple service discovery format that allows different devices that are usually IoT devices or other things that are together on a network to identify each other and kind of broadcast information about what services they have and what their identity is. Of course, this is not validated. So if you put a device on a network like one of these little D1 minis, it actually is able to spoof all this information and appear to be really whatever you want it to be. And we did an attack that was based on this because there's actually libraries for Arduino that allow you to manipulate SSDP in any way you want. So this looks like it is not a microcontroller-based program. This is for Linux, so you don't need to be a microcontroller person to take advantage of it. And it does some of the same things that the attack on these microcontrollers does, which is create a device that looks as though maybe it's a remote Azure Share or even like a webcam or something more spicy or interesting. And when you click on this, or when the user sees this and clicks on it, you can really redirect them wherever you want. And that could be a phishing page. That could be a lot of different things. What's cool about it is it's really indistinguishable from the user perspective. When you're just looking around on your network, or if you're on a Windows computer in particular, it'll just pop up as like a shared device or shared drive or a network device. And you can see it very prominently on the file explorer on the left. And it's very tempting to click on it and find out what it is. And that is something that an attacker could use as an attack vector to get people to go to a phishing page and think, I don't remember mounting this like OneDrive or something, and then like attempt to open it and then end up getting phished for their Microsoft credentials. So lots of really interesting things you can do with this by presenting a fake type of device across the network. And the cool thing is everyone on the network will see this device. So if you're attacking like a company or everybody attached to a network, like maybe a small business network, then that means that everybody there will be tempted to maybe click on this thing and enter their credentials to try to access this drive that's just popped up. And it looks very like authentic on a Windows computer. It's kind of cool how you just see it pop up and like, oh, cool, I just got access to a drive, and you can like open it. It looks like the device just became available to you, but really it's an attacker joining the network and then kind of spoofing what device they really are to get your computer to offer you up that little option. So really cool that there's a number of different tools around that will allow you to take advantage of this network protocol, because frankly, it is very ripe for abuse.
Okay, so I've been asked the most important question of the evening.
Oh, I'm sure.
Which is about the dreaded and most vile of creature, the drop bear.
Oh, well, I've
never been to Australia personally,
but I think I think I know some people who have actually died from
Yes.
drop bears. Yeah.
They're quite violent, and they just pop out of nowhere. You're just walking along, you're hiking, you're having a good old time. Then you're in the land down under, and then boom, they're on top of you, mauling you to death. Vicious little beast.
Yeah,
That's all
so
I have to say about
I guess
those.
they're like related to the koala, but they've evolved into a more predatory species.
They got huge fangs.
All right, yeah. So again, this is more Michael's field than mine. But again, that's why we have our cryptozoology expert.
Okay, but so back to the other questions, the IoT security. So the sort of things I usually advise are low-hanging fruit would be segment your network if at all possible, put all your IoT devices on another network. It's also important to keep, brand aware and make sure, that the brand of IoT devices that you're getting aren't, having breaches every other month, and to make sure that they're taking security seriously. And then you can go into more other things like, enable two-factor authentication if that's available. That's all like the low-hanging fruit I can think of off the top of my head. Do you have any more particular advice?
Network segmentation, firewalls,
Yeah.
DNS filter. So like really restricting malicious DNS going out is a good way to catch like really common things that are known that have like C2 servers that are really able to be filtered for. So, preventing an infection that way by making sure it can't communicate back to whatever it's trying to do. And then also making sure that your Wi-Fi password is as strong as possible. The problem is a lot of IoT devices don't support WPA3. So that means that they're as vulnerable as their passwords are. And a lot of them also have just like issues that are a lot worse once you're on the network. So securing your perimeter is going to be your best bet. And also trying to segment off a section just for those IoT devices. So if someone does get in, they're not able to access your other stuff would be a really good idea.
What is UDP?
It's a network protocol. What about it?
Yeah, that's all the question is what is protocol UDP?
That is a very fundamental networking question that requires further context.
You can Google it. Yeah.
So yeah. What is the user datagam protocol? How does UDP work? This is this is a little bit too fundamental to answer. Unless Michael, you would like to dive into it.
No, I'm not. I know enough networking to basically get myself in trouble, and that's about it. So I'm not a Wikipedia for all the acronyms.
Yeah. In lieu of us teaching you the fundamentals of networking on this one stream, please take a look at this Cloudflare article on what UDP is. I believe you will find it useful.
Oh, no. Now we have to inform them what TCP is.
Okay, go for it, Michael.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to the next question here.
All right, so I see there was a question which was just how to install a payload on the USB rubber ducky. Is that a question?
I think I saw something like that.
Okay, yeah. So in fact, I see it twice. So there is now the Hack5 Payload Studio. Let me try to bring it up really quick. I think I misspelled it, but Payload Studios. No, I need Hack5 Payload Studio. So Payload Studio is something that allows you to make payloads for virtually any Hack5 device and then flash them to them. So if we switch over to my screen, you can see it right here. You can select here the USB rubber ducky. Oh, look at that. We have a cool little operator. And this is for the new version of the USB rubber ducky. So there's no ifs in like the previous version of Ducky script. So obviously this is advanced Ducky script. I can click on generate a payload. There we go. Oh, and look at that. It failed to compile. Well, that's great news.
That's always my favorite kind of programming. Just compile it until it actually works.
Yeah, this is the default text, bro. All right, well, whatever. So you can go and select whatever Hack5 tool you have, USB rubber ducky, Bash Bunny, Keycroc. Let's do the Bash Bunny.
Just as a side comment, can I say I always have loved the Hack5 art?
Sure. Yeah, okay. And then will it work? Yeah, okay, look at that. It saved my payload and I could just drag and drop it to the Bash Bunny. So Payload Studio is a really cool and awesome way to make and deliver payloads for virtually any Hack5 product. If you're not sure about how, like what, command line stuff you have to run in order to do this, then yeah, you don't need to worry about it. Instead, you can just use this. So yeah, I think in particular, the USB rubber ducky payloads need to be compiled before they're put on the device, especially the new ones. So click on generate payload. Is it going to do it this time? Generating ject.bin. Is it going to work? Payload failed to compile. I think I also need to open this in like Chrome or something, but whatever. So you can see like basically how this process would work if I actually had a demo script that wasn't failing.
That would compile.
Oh, what is nice though is it tells me like where. Oh yeah, it doesn't like the if. Okay, so this is probably trying to do like classic Ducky script. I'm sorry, I just wanted this to generate a payload. Here we go. It compiled successfully. So I can download the .bin file, and then I can put it on my USB rubber ducky, and it should just go ahead and work. So that's my favorite way currently of generating a payload. If you guys didn't know about Payload Studio, then let me know in the chat, because that means that we probably haven't been telling you enough about it. But I really like it. It simplifies the process of creating it because I don't need to do any command line stuff, and I can do it from any computer with the browser.
Yeah, if y'all want to hear more about that, then let us know in the comments, and one of us can make a video on it. Kody, do you disable UPnP on networks by default?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yes, that's the short answer.
I mean, for my networks, like I don't need that, and it's not helpful, and it does allow for this kind of spoofing, but like I have to turn it on when I'm doing testing, and I want to be able to see like other devices on the network and stuff. So
well, that's what I was going to say is that sort of stuff works really like disabling it works really well if it's just you on the network, but when you start throwing in roommates, friends, significant others, etc. Sometimes you don't want to play network admin at home. So sometimes that can be a hassle turning it off.
Here's a question. Did you hear the Flipper Zero shipment got stopped by US Customs? Funny you should ask. Let's go over to my screen where you can see the email I got a couple of days ago. US Customs has seized a container with your Flipper order.
I love that art.
Yeah, so it seems like the government has taken my Flipper, and I'm furious. So I have the option of like canceling the order, but in my case, like it's not, it's not urgent. People have been asking me to do a video on this for such a long time. So I ordered it a while ago, actually. I think it was like a month, maybe a month and a half ago. And it is, having some problems. So I can only imagine how stressed out the team at Flipper is, because not only that, they also had a bunch of drama with PayPal. So do you remember what happened with PayPal?
Didn't PayPal like seize their assets or something along those lines?
Literally exactly that. Yes, PayPal would not allow them to collect their money after freezing their account and then requiring them to submit a bunch of verification documents, and then after that they just like froze it permanently. So lots of problems for the Flipper supply, and we have not been able to get our hands on one yet. But yeah, so still going to be a while until we get to do that video, unfortunately, just because of how difficult it is for us to get our hands on one at the moment.
Can a rubber ducky perform an attack on a Chromebook? Yeah, it can basically perform an attack on any device which is capable of having a keyboard plugged into it. That would include cellular devices, tablets, Chromebooks, laptops, desktops, various embedded machines. So yes.
All right, here's another question. Why Wi-Fi Pineapple expensive? Follow-up question. Why? Okay, so the Wi-Fi Pineapple is expensive because like a team of developers has to like design it. Then after that, they have to go get it certified. It costs like a ridiculous amount of money just to get it like FCC certified, so it can be like shipped and sold and whatever else without breaking any laws. There's like warehousing, packaging, ship. There's just like the component, like you name it, it's really expensive. So as somebody who's doing hardware creation, it is really, if you want to build your own Wi-Fi Pineapple, like you can do it, like go for it, like you can try. But the problem is like doing all that work is really hard and also expensive, which is something that ultimately, unfortunately, is passed on at least a little bit to the customer. Although I would say Hack5 products are definitely not that expensive compared to how much work has been put into making them easy to use. And again, things like Payload Studio, like developing that website, making sure it's free and publicly available so that people can use it to create their own payloads. It does take developers work and time and energy. So that's where the cost goes, just as a list. All right, next question.
Okay. We cannot answer questions about such things as SMS spoofing in regards to how to perform those attacks. But we actually did put out a video a couple of days ago on our Security Forward channel about the prevalence of these attacks and how it is pretty easy to fall prey to some of these sorts of attacks. I'm trying to look for that question real quick.
I've been told that I look blurry. Uh-oh. Well, not much.
Yeah. Give me just a second. Yeah.
Can you decrypt the PCAP file captured with the Ponagotchi? I can't get the PCAP to HKey whatever for Hashcat to work, or is there a better way? So I don't know. I actually don't have a Ponagotchi. I guess I have all the components to make one though, or at least most of them, because it just uses a Raspberry Pi Zero W, I think. But it shouldn't be encrypted. Like there's definitely a way for you to convert the PCAP file to something for Hashcat to work, but you can also use a number of other like cracking tools. And like if that works, then I would just say like might be a little slower, but like if you can get it working on like AirCrack NG or something, just like try that first. And then if that works, then like you can get into trying to adapt it to Hashcat. But I mean, there is a specific way of doing it. But like if the PCAP file can't even be opened by like AirCrack NG, then you might have another problem.
Okay, so the question I was going to reference earlier, well, it was more of a comment really, is just a guy talking about on our SMS phishing attacks video. I got an SMS from a distant uncle who has now ascended the throne since his mother just passed. He needs help to pay for some stamping to officially make him king. Basically, he's just joking about how these SMSs are the new Nigerian print scheme. You know, everyone seems to get these random texts. It's, either like we explored before, like, oh, this package is stuck in customs and it needs your approval. Or, there's been various banks that have been hit. And yeah, so did you want to talk about maybe ways to protect yourself from those sorts of SMS attacks? Or, just generally don't click on anything that you don't trust? No? Okay.
All right, so give me your quick thoughts on the pipeline, super fast. A lot of people are mincing words about this, but I'm ready to come out here and make some definitive statements. I believe the pipeline was blown up. I think they used explosives, and I think the economic impact is going to be bad. Next question.
Okay.
Raspberry Pi alternatives. So that is a question that's coming up more and more because of the supply crunch, and it is really difficult still to get a Raspberry Pi. So a lot of people are turning to alternatives, and I've seen, I actually haven't tried too many of them because we have a lot of Raspberry Pis that we usually use for like 3D printer stuff and things like that. But at the moment, like they're mostly free, so I haven't needed any. So I actually have not tried any Raspberry Pi alternatives, although I'm about to start doing that because I know that at some point they are going to be mature enough to have like the same, like you plug in an SD card and it's good to go kind of experience. But most of the time when I'm looking at getting one, I see that a lot of people are either having problems or there's other issues with it, like actually just, I don't know, having that level of like simplicity for getting set up. So I don't really want to recommend one yet, but if anybody has any that maybe they want us to try out on Hack 5 and do a review of, then please let us know in the comments and we will actually do a video on Raspberry Pi alternatives and maybe compare them against each other. So maybe give us like 3 that you want us to try out and we will actually do that because that sounds like fun actually.
So what is RISC-V? RISC-V is an open source ARM. So what is it? Reduced. Basically, it's a reduced instruction set that's open source. So that way you can make microcontrollers and small processors that run more efficiently and don't have to pay licensing fees for it. And there's a lot of cores available that are open source. So, if you are trying to develop your own ASIC, in theory, you can do it for somewhat reduced cost.
Am I back? Am I back at home with my cats and out of California? Yes. However, Alex is still in California. So if you are around the LA area, I also wanted to shout out this class that's coming up. Alex is going to be hosting a class at Nullspace Labs, which is going to be super fun. And if you're around, you should definitely check it out. But unfortunately, yes, I am clear of California, at least for the foreseeable future, because I like to experience fall.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, it's a nice, lovely fall time around here. I can't find the comment, but someone was asking about, if you're struggling with hack the box, if that means you're a bad hacker. I don't think that means you're a bad hacker. I think all hackers struggle with something at some point. And something I will note on a lot of those like CTF websites is, you have to learn, right? So like everyone has to learn. Don't expect to be able to just go in there and fly through every challenge. It wouldn't be a challenge then, right? So just
what is the difference between an AT Tiny 85 and a USB Rubber Ducky in terms of work, where the price of an AT is $1 and the price of a USB Rubber Ducky is $50?
Mhm.
So the USB Rubber Ducky is going, well, first of all, they're based on different microcontrollers, and the USB Rubber Ducky is much more powerful in terms of what it can do. The AT Tiny 85 is going to be super limited, and frankly, I hate working with them. The reliability is very poor, and often you will find that the traces of the USB, if you're using like a Digispark or something like that, do not properly line up with the traces of the USB on the target computer. So it will not be able to actually connect to the computer. It's super, super irritating. So for example, on a MacBook Pro, especially an older version that has like USB ports, it is absolutely the wrong size and it will not work when you plug it in. So the reliability just isn't very great on an AT Tiny 85, and also programming it is rather annoying. There are some tools out there to convert Ducky script to like Arduino code, which are really cool. However, if you're trying to do this manually, it is super not fun. So using those tools is really essential to convert Ducky script over to something that is much more, programmatic, an Arduino script. And you can do it, but it is, I would say, way less convenient. And on top of that, an AT Tiny 85 device like a Digispark or something is going to look very alarming when plugged into someone's computer. It does not look subtle. So whereas the USB Rubber Ducky looks plausibly like something that could be plugged into your computer and have it not be a bad, scary thing, the Digispark looks horrifying. So nobody wants to see that plugged into their computer. And so we used to sell Digisparks on our store, but honestly, the user experience was so terrible, we would have to send two, even when someone ordered one, because they would complain it wouldn't work, and we would get it working on our end, but then they would insist it didn't. So like, I just found them to be a burden to work with. Again, it's like if you want to pay $1 and spend like all this time understanding why nobody uses these, or not nobody, understanding why people prefer not to use these, you can do it. But if you want to have an experience where it flashes every time properly, you just drag and drop a bin file. These sorts of things are really, really simple and make the process so much faster to learn that there's a lot less friction. And people that develop a lot of these scripts really want to have as little friction as possible. So
yeah, kind of adding on to that, like you can't just buy one of them. Like they're so unreliable that we would get them, and then like Kody was saying, you try to flash one or whatever, and then like 3 of them in a row wouldn't work. So definitely not ideal. I think the only thing I would ever use those for is if I were doing some kind of campaign where I'm like throwing like 20 thumb drives around a parking lot or something and hoping someone picks it up, then maybe it might be a little more useful for that, where cost might be a valid concern.
Yeah, but nobody would pick it up because it would look crazy.
Oh, well, that's what I mean, is you would have to like put in a USB case or something. But
yeah, but like it wouldn't fit. It's too fat. Like
it is, yeah. Okay, so we have a question from our old guide on router hacking with Routersploit. And basically, they're just saying they're getting a bunch of errors with Routersploit. Have you tried it recently? Do you know?
No, I haven't tried Routersploit in a minute.
Yeah.
It's been a good long time. Let's see.
That's the problem with some of these tools sometimes.
Let's do a health check. So, all right. So if you have a tool and you're not sure if it is currently being maintained or not, let's take a look at how I determine whether or not something is worth trying. So, all right, go over to my screen, please. And we have Routersploit, and it looks like across the board, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, that's not good. Not 10 days ago, but that's just the README. That doesn't count. So it looks like this code has not been touched in years.
That was such a good tool too.
Yeah, it's great. I don't think anyone was paid to maintain this though. So yeah, it's still linked to in Kali Linux and stuff, but here's another. All right, so here's our red flags. First, we have a lot of different multi-year ago codes, like sections here, which means that, again, anything that was done 4 or 5 years ago probably doesn't work anymore. Then we go to issues. How many issues do we have? A lot. We have a lot. We have, well, this one's not very descriptive. It just is the name of the, okay. router exploit crashing, stops forever when checking to exploit SSH creds, issue with autopwn, errors in execution, router run command error. It looks like a lot of people are having issues with this, and there's not a lot of follow-up on any of these. So that's not good. It means that the the developer is no longer really like going through here and like closing out errors or acknowledging them. So all these people are just screaming into the void. So yeah, so that's my little guide on checking to see if something has become derelict. At this point, I would say this has all the signs of being a derelict project. Hasn't been updated in years, except for the README file. And on top of that, there's a lot of open issues that have not been addressed. So yes, I would say, unfortunately, it looks like maybe this project has been abandoned. Although I'll have to go and look for other alternatives. If you know of any other, build your own. People started to fork Routersploit not because they were interested, but because they wanted to leverage our interactive shell. Oh, okay, all right. Do they give you a place to go for a new? Okay, so this was updated 2 years ago. Sorry, sometimes I just manage to find out that they've actually updated it or somebody else has taken over the project. But it looks like they've provided some development tools for being able to make things that are like Routersploit, so you can kind of roll your own, and maybe that's where the community has gone. So yeah, I am now very interested. Typically, I'll also go back and like take a look at different forks that are there and see if maybe
someone else took it over.
Yeah, because if one of those forks ends up being like really interesting and like a lot of people have started, then odds are it might actually be something worth following. So yeah, definitely check it out. And if you find any of these that have gone somewhere, then please let me know, because I would love to recommend something that is a follow-up to Routersploit.
Okay, so here we have a question about quantum supremacy. Quantum computers should break
you take this one.
SHA-256 encryption, but how far away is that? I've heard they're technically reach quantum supremacy now. I was kind of hoping you might have some input on this. Yeah, I know that quantum computers are a rapidly developing field. I have no idea how far away that is, unfortunately. But you know, I remember a couple of years ago, it was like, oh, we got enough qubits to emulate calculator.exe, you know, right? Like, yeah, we seem to be farther along than that. I don't think we're going to get to the point, you know, in the next decade where you have a, you know, M.2 quantum drive you just slot in your MacBook, right? But I do think that we'll start seeing these more widely adopted on the kind of cloud and enterprise scale over the next couple of years.
Another good question. What kind of logs would a high-tech attacker want to clear when covering their tracks when remotely accessing your network and retrieving data, or would they cloak their entry? For example, on Linux or Windows. I was going to ignore that and say, like, as an attacker, the number one thing I want to control if I'm, like, you know, going after an individual person, since my experience is more in wireless networking, is like the router, and making sure that I've like removed any logs in the router that indicate network traffic that would be suspicious, recoverable, or identifying. And being able to get into the router and make sure those logs have been sanitized is easy most of the time, because a lot of routers are older or out of date or not really set up in the proper way, and they are really great targets. I would recommend with something like Routersploit, but apparently it's not being maintained anymore. So maybe something more like Metasploit that is maintained. But yeah, so there's definitely some value in making sure that networking logs are cleared and any sort of like firewall stuff like has been taken care of. So that's typically where I would go, because I'm more of a networking person.
Cool. So we have a question here, wondering about if you're going to be in the UK anytime soon.
There was some conference there that I considered going to, but then I didn't. So no, I don't think I'll be going to the UK anytime soon, unless I have a layover on the way to the C3 conference, if I am in fact still doing that. I was trying to check it out last night and the website was down, so that's not a super encouraging sign. But
maybe you have to hack the website.
But I'm still thinking about it. It's going to be in Hamburg this year, around like New Year's. So yeah, I'm interested to see if it's still going forward, and that will probably be the closest I come to the UK, at least for a little bit. All right, what's another good question? Oh yeah, and as for the quantum stuff, like I have no idea.
Is it better to learn with Rust or Python?
It depends on what you want to do. If you want to do stuff with prototyping and you want to do stuff with embedded things, then I would say Python is a little bit more useful right now, and it's also a lot easier. Rust is a lower level language, and it's going to be more useful if you're just doing stuff on a computer, not like a microcontroller. I know that there is Rust-based languages for microcontrollers, but I haven't seen that they have enough support that people really do a lot of development in them. So as somebody focused more on microcontrollers, I'm not super interested in Rust at the moment because it doesn't offer the same functionality that I need to do like either lower or higher level development with like microcontroller stuff. But you know, for your average piece of malicious software, like I'm sure it'll do just fine. I would still recommend Python though.
James Randolph makes a good point about, you know, being worried about nation states storing data right now so that they can decrypt it 10 or 20 years from now when there is quantum supremacy or, you know, some other method to break it. You know, I think that's a somewhat valid point, but at the same time, how valuable is 20-year-old data in this day and age? Like, I think all data is going to retain value to some degree over time, but it definitely feels, you know, I know it's not Moore's law, but with that kind of growth we're continuing to go through, you know, is that data going to be valuable? Maybe, maybe not.
There's a lot of quantum questions. So I've only been to a couple talks about like quantum cryptography, and like most of what I've been told is just like we're not like AI is going to be a bigger problem than quantum stuff like in the immediate future, and we're not even quite there yet. Where like attackers are really leveraging AI. So that's yeah, I think that's more of a concern at the moment. But
Sam's mocking my M.2 quantum drive, but I mean, you already have ASICs for neural network acceleration and stuff like that you can, like the Coral. So I think it's possible that we'll see that in the future.
Do you have a recommendation for network monitoring to detect malicious programs transmitting data, Michael?
Sorry, repeat the first part of the question.
Do you have a recommendation for network monitoring?
You can go down the rabbit hole that is pfSense and all the plugins that you do for that. It definitely has a bit of a learning curve, and there can be a bit of an installation curve. You'll learn a lot about networking and monitoring your network. You can also do OpenSense if you don't want to do pfSense. If you're a little less hardcore than that, you might want to try Ubiquity's firewall. That's what we run here. And, you know, it's pretty prosumer. It's great for small businesses, or if you just want to have a bit more insight. Also, if you want to do a little more network monitoring on the cheap and you happen to have a Raspberry Pi, you can use Pi-hole. It's intended to be an ad blocker that works on the DNS level, but it also gives you a pretty good idea of the type of internet traffic that's going on in your network, especially when you enable all the logging, which can be a little invasive if you have other people on the network with you, but it does give you a pretty good network logging capability.
Yeah, people don't like that shit. I'm sorry, but like if you find out that your roommate is logging every website that you're making a DNS request for or stuff like that, like people will get mad at you. So just be aware that if you're going to go into that level and you'd be like, oh, up late checking out that website, huh?
What were you doing at 3 a.m.?
Yeah, people don't like that stuff.
Yeah.
They really don't like it. It really makes them mad. So just be aware that if you're going to put yourself in a position where you're intercepting network traffic and metadata, you should probably tell the people around you that you have that capability, because if they find out later, they will probably get mad.
You know, and then also if you want to do something similar on your desktop, you can check out Glasswire. I haven't personally used it, but you know, you always see the advertisements for it. So I'm assuming there's at least something to it.
Man, advertising works on you.
Hey,
it just means that somebody's giving them money.
That's true. That's true. But you know, yeah.
All right. So somebody
It's
asked
got
about
pretty graphs,
CTFs and like other things for learning. I want to show you my personal favorite one. So PortSwiger makes these labs, which are great. They allow you to practice things like SQL injection. And this is like web application pen testing stuff that's totally outside of what I usually do, but I was able to get into a lot of these and really learn a lot about them. I also did not use Burp Suite at all. I went ahead and used OWASP Zap for every single one of these challenges, and it worked just fine. So while PortSwiger makes a really great product, they also didn't get back to me very quickly or helpfully when I was just trying to feature this on Hack 5. So my official recommendation is actually trying out the authentication and access control vulnerabilities. This is where I live. Like, I love bypassing usernames, breaking into accounts, that sort of stuff in these labs. They provide you literally the broken like web applications that you can attack. Most of them are pretty easy. Some of them are quite hard. I think I've only gotten one of these two. And that's because like one of them literally takes like 3 hours to do. Like, and it's like an impossible amount of time if you use Burp Suite, which is artificially limited. So yeah, pretty crazy, some of these labs, but also really fun. And you can learn a lot about web application pen testing, and they're free. So do you have to use Burp Suite? No. If you have Burp Suite, it might be a tiny bit easier because the examples and hints they provide are for Burp Suite. But I've used OWASP Zap for all this stuff, and it's actually super fun. So I really recommend this.
Yeah, and so just to kind of final comment on the quantum computing stuff, basically the notion that, you know, as quantum goes forward and it's able to break encryption, we're also developing algorithms that are quantum resistant. And, you know, that's something I want to remind people, right, is like the attack defense game, it's always going on, right? Like, so, you know, while one might have a temporary advantage, I don't think that those will last forever, right? So quantum might be ahead in breaking encryption for a while, but eventually we'll have algorithms that work reliably and can encrypt against it. And, you know, we've already seen various researchers do experiments with quantum entanglement as a form of encrypting telecommunications and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Sorry, I'm digging through all of these emojis. I had to put someone in timeout because they were spamming too many emojis.
They were just looking for their mommy, is what it said.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. What is your favorite word list? I mean, I always just go to the sec list on GitHub if I need a password list, but I don't really do that much of stuff. That might be Kody's wheelhouse a little more.
You know, whatever, like honestly, anything that's sorted and has a lot of real life passwords. Why are you still sharing my screen? Stop that. Oh, anything that's like sorted and has a lot of real world passwords is going to be my preference, especially if it's optimized for WPA2, which means like no passwords that are shorter than 8 characters and like some other like specific things to make sure.
Sorry, I just got assaulted by a spider.
Cool. Yeah, so anything that is like pre-formatted for WPA2 that isn't going to waste my time when I'm going after a specific thing. Because yeah, if you just use a random password list and it doesn't have the 2 short passwords removed, you're just gonna be wasting a bunch of time. So there's plenty of them available online. Like I like to start with the smaller ones first, and then if that doesn't hit it, then I'll go with like a really large one that's been optimized. But yeah, there are some good ones out there. Mostly on GitHub though, I would recommend you look.
Yeah, so we have a question about if we can do some sort of like everyday carry kind of video or travel bag video.
I did one on TikTok.
Did you?
Yeah.
Do you want to link to that?
Yeah, I'll share it.
Okay.
But yeah, if you check out our Hackbite TikTok, one of the first things we did was like, what's in my bag? And we were featuring a mini soldering kit actually that I use for a lot of electronics development. But that's in my bag. That's what I carry.
Yeah, no. Yeah, we still got a couple of minutes to go. So don't worry. We're not going to sign off quite yet. Okay. Let me dig up some old
How many
questions.
subfields of hacking can you actually master? There seems to be people who are really good at Wi-Fi or web apps or Active Directory. I can't imagine possibly mastering multiple. All right, so that's super cool because yeah, that's true. Like often people will get really good at 1 or 2 things and then they'll kind of stay in those 2 things. And frankly, staying relevant with any rapidly evolving technology is super hard and takes not only like domain knowledge, but also staying current and staying active with that thing. So for example, like I do a lot of Wi-Fi hacking, I do a lot of OSINT stuff. And now I'm starting to do some web application pen testing stuff. I also do programming, like staying current and continuing to get better and better with all those things. When I also know that I know next to nothing about Active Directory and some of these other things that are really big deals. It's literally people's entire job. do I know anything about like Salesforce administration? No, I don't. But that's also like a whole career path for people. It is wild, but often you get put into jobs where like managing a little bit of each one is what you're paid to do. And those are growth opportunities where you get to learn how to do something that usually you don't get the opportunity to like become at least like a passable expert with, where at least you know how to deal with the most common problems and like situations. So I would say like for me, I have some things I aspirationally still want to get a lot better at. Computer science, networking, electronics, like being able to like make more circuit boards. Like those are all things I want to get better at, even though I know a little bit about them now. But frankly, it is kind of daunting because people dedicate their entire lives to these things, and being really good at them takes a lot of practice in very, very different disciplines.
So one person is asking about where they can get the malicious cable tester. So if you go to Hack5, it'll be under the OMG products. You can get the malicious cable detector. And then in regards to everyone that asked can I ship to so-and-so foreign country? If you go to hack5.org/compliance, you can see where we can ship to. Fortunately, we're limited in what countries we can ship to because of ITAR compliance. Technically, they're all considered cyber weapons, so we have to comply with the law there.
Yeah, somebody asked live doxing, and the answer is no. Although we continuously have people show us, like one of the first nullbyte videos I did was identifying how you can use wiggle.net to find someone's location based on leaked Wi-Fi networks. Everybody knows this trick. And yet for some reason, people still love to send us the apartment in Los Angeles that I used to live in as the address and be like, oh, look, bro, I can see where you are. And it is in the roughest neighborhood. It's literally, there's 3 documentaries about how scary this neighborhood is and has been. So it's like, A, I'm not there anymore, and B, if you were to walk around this neighborhood, like you would get beat up. Like it is like not a place you want to hang out at. So it's always kind of funny to us when people like try to just like, oh, look, I use technology to find you, and then post that comment in a public place. If I was like sensitive about that stuff, I would be very annoyed and I would not like that. But instead it just like is distasteful and I don't like it. And I feel like it puts like people who would go to that location more in danger. Because it is a bad part of Los Angeles. But anyway, so no, we don't do doxing. And also please stop, because not only do I not live there, but also it's not safe for you.
So this is on an old video, the Wi-Fi half handshake attack. Guys saying he heard about this on the radio, and they were suggesting to disable your Wi-Fi whenever you leave home.
Smart.
Is that overkill?
What radio?
I don't know. I don't know what radio.
Who was talking about this
I feel
attack?
like he said radio, but meant podcast.
Yeah, that could be. There's definitely like GPS settings you can do, which will disable your phone from trying to connect to random networks when you're not in a place that you want it. And I guess the trade-off here is like, do you want your phone to be randomly trying to connect to networks as you go about your day? Might be able to save you a little bit of like data costs, like maybe, but like I'm not sure that it's worth the security risk of being able to extract passwords from your phone, basically. Like that doesn't seem like something you want. So I would say setting up like a routine that disables your Wi-Fi, like unless you're at work or home, would be the smartest way of going about that. But frankly, like I turn off my Wi-Fi like a lot of the time, like when I go out, like just because I don't need it, and I don't want it. It's always suggesting to connect to these random sketchy open networks. I'm just like, no, I don't want to connect to that. Like, absolutely not. So and I find that sometimes it'll find networks that have the same name as one I connected to forever ago, but clearly aren't that network. It's like a chain, either chain networks or similarly named. So it is definitely a risk. And as someone who hacks Wi-Fi, I love it when people leave their wireless radio on, because I can do all kinds of stuff to the device. So yes, I would suggest, if you're paranoid about that sort of attack, then deleting unnecessary networks from your phone, and then also turning off your Wi-Fi when you're not using it are actually a really good idea. Because I can get people's, if you don't believe me, go to a concert, go to like a big gathering, make your phone's hotspot name as Google Starbucks, no security, turn it on, and just tell me how many phones connect. Because for me, it was 14.
What?
And if you want to have some fun, you can turn on your VPN, send it to Japan, and then everybody's websites will start loading in Japanese, and they won't know why.
That's great.
But that's my favorite demonstration of why it's so important to either turn off your internet, or your Wi-Fi specifically, or just delete these old networks from your device before going out, because this really works. And the fact that it works so well is just a kind of an idea of how easy it is for somebody else to hijack your data connection while you're out and pretty much show you whatever they want you to see.
Yes. Okay, a couple things here. Zam was talking about the knowledge paradox. I believe he's referring to the Dunning-Kruger effect. Basically, the idea that the more you learn about a subject, the more you realize there is to learn about a subject, and kind of the pinnacle of Mount Stupid. But also, another question I wanted to address was, do you ever think we'll get to the point where most stuff is unhackable? Or do you think it'll be a continuous arms race?
I think it's going to be a continuous arms race because there are, computers are incredibly dumb. They make like really fundamental dumb mistakes all the time because humans are the ones that operate them currently and are the ones that set them up. So I think that there's going to be a long time of being able to take advantage of computers just being dumb. But once everything starts to be more networked and everything starts to be more intelligent and is linked together to like systems that have a bit more horsepower, then I think it will become more difficult to hack some of the things that we currently, see as very hackable. So I do think that like turning a corner and having like AI become something where both attackers and defenders are using is going to be a really interesting point where things will probably become harder to hack because like the attackers have the ability to take advantage of any one of these very stupid mistakes, and it suddenly becomes unacceptable to make it that easy. So I would say like once we switch over to AI, like attack and defense, like it'll still be possible to do bad things, but you will need to like make a purchase, and it might not be the kind of thing where you're able to actually break into a system yourself without leveraging some known flaw in like an AI or the way that it processes something.
Yeah, kind of echoing that. Like, I kind of believe in the inherent fallibility of human beings. So as long as there's human beings writing codes and programs, I believe there inherently is going to be some flaw available in that. And so in that sense, I don't think you're ever going to really reach an unhackable state. I mean, you could start talking about long-distance sci-fi futures, but that would be for another live stream.
Is the Stingray still a thing? And isn't it scary how much advanced a government agency and a private vendor tools are compared to what's open source? Yeah. So Stingrays are definitely still a thing. And in fact, they've been upgraded to work with like 5G and LTE and all this other stuff that they didn't used to work with very well. They had to downgrade the signal in order to work. In that area, I told you that was very dangerous. We frequently would have our signal drop out. And that's because that area was subject to like a RICO investigation where the federal government came in and was intercepting everyone's phones and stuff. And our reception was really terrible. They would cut out all the time. And anytime there was a major incident, an LAPD helicopter would come in and fly really low. And suddenly our cell phones would kind of cut out and a lot of us weren't able to make calls. And that's because a lot of the cell phone signals were caught up by the Stingray, and they were basically creating a log of everybody who was in the area by their cell phones. And this is really common police practice nowadays. It just happens a lot in that neighborhood. So I have definitely also seen some research about using things like Wiggle Wi-Fi to identify Stingrays by going around and taking a record of where all the different cell phone towers are, and then looking for ones that are moving or maybe not there all the time. There were some really interesting studies done where they found, I believe, some at like the airport in a certain city just using Wiggle Wi-Fi on Android phones and driving around for a certain period of time. So while these are becoming more and more prevalent, there's also some interesting open source ways of detecting them.
Yeah.
Although I guess now that those are more well known, there's probably some ways of hiding where these antennas really are. So
yeah, if you're interested in that topic, there's several good videos on the DEF CON channel on YouTube. It's one of the talks on detecting rogue cell towers. And then if you're more interested in the police angle, we also have several videos on the Security Forward channel about police using geofence warrants, which is sort of a similar thing where they'll go to a company like Google and be like, give me every device that was within these coordinates at the state and time. And they just hand it over.
There's also private companies that provide that exact same data from like advertising trackers and stuff like that. So you can draw a fence, let them know that you want to find every phone that was in this area. Without a warrant, they can then go back and find out where this person lives, works, and immediately be able to identify them based on that information. So there's layers of surveillance, some public, some private, that leverage that sort of data and allow you to be caught in a surveillance net. Does DNS spoofing still work? Heck yeah, it does. DNS spoofing is great because it's honestly one of the most vulnerable things. I love like trying to like create malicious networks and have people join them and see what kind of like settings I can mess with to like poison the network or do sketchy things. And DNS is probably my favorite because like the network often decides like what the DNS server is. Like that's like the default setting. So unless you have specified a DNS server, the default setting is for just me as the network to tell you where the DNS server is. So if that happens to be malicious, whoops, like you're not going to get a warning. Like, so just connecting someone forcibly to a network is enough to poison the DNS and be able to start redirecting all the requests going through someone's phone, for example, to a malicious DNS server. And I think that is hilarious. So yeah, it's very, very funny to me to be able to completely take control of what websites load and what information is returned by just creating a malicious network and then forcibly connecting someone to it. So yeah, DNS spoofing still works. It's really easy, and there's a lot of bad stuff you can do.
Yeah, so we have a comment here talking about how shopping malls and other areas that are often congested frequently have Stingrays in place. I do wonder if that might not be a false positive, because I know a lot of big concrete buildings or congested areas will frequently use sort of what is like a cell tower booster, for lack of a better purpose, because the cellular signals in those buildings would not be good enough for you to browse the internet, make a call and stuff. So frequently they'll have these devices that are on the roof, receive the signal from the cellular band, and then just repeat that inside at various antennas. So I do wonder if that might throw off some of these programs detecting it, because they might not actually be man in the middling that data. And then also I want to thank Zam for helping out with all the spammers in the chat today. I know, yes. We can only move so fast.
That's great. It's good to know when you've made it when you just have a bunch of bots in the chat. All right. So I think we're coming up on the end of our time, unless we have got some other urgent and excellent questions. If you didn't get your question in today, make sure to leave a comment on this YouTube video, and we will make sure that it is among the first that we answer during the next Q&A session next week. And as always,
I can answer a quick question.
Sure, quick. Sure.
Femtocell, Rogue Cell Tower, what was that? Like all of those are the same thing. They're referring to the same sort of devices.
All right. Thank you to everybody in the chat today too. It's been very lively, and it's always great to connect with everyone. As I said, if you're in the Los Angeles area, make sure to check out Alex's class. It is going to be whenever this link says it's going to be. Wait, that's the wrong one. Wait, that's the wrong one. Okay, well, just trust me. It's going to be in Los Angeles. Check out Cyber Weapons Lab LA on Meetup if you want to check out that and future events in the LA area. And per always, a big thank you to Veronas for letting us do this show. We get to do it every week, and we also get to do our Friday show where we talk about all the hacker news that happened that week, and that is on the Security Forward channel. That's Security FWD. So make sure to follow if you want to check out that show as well, and we'll see you then. Bye.